can see why the filmmakers would want to put Hogwarts here. I mean, it just makes sense.
What's up, y'all, and welcome back to A Sense of Travel. I'm Michael, and I'm on a mission on this channel to document all 5 senses of as many cities, countries, and natural landmarks around the world as I possibly can, so that I can immerse you into those experiences through the screen imaginatively. Well, this week, we are in the Scottish Highlands, visiting a few spots you might recognize and a few you might not.
And so, let's get started.
You want to talk about pure bliss and pure magic? The Scottish Highlands are perhaps the most blissful and magical place that I've traveled to date. In the northwest corner of the country, Scotland's Highlands are rugged, dramatic, mysterious, serene, and jaw-droppingly beautiful. Today, I invite you to experience these storied mountainsides beyond just the visuals and checklists. I documented all 5 senses on my journey to Glenfinnan, Fort William, and the small village of Caol, and my hope is to use these senses to build the adventure in your mind so that you can feel like you're right there with me. So, let's dive in. The rolling, jagged, and dramatic mountains of the Highlands, some of which are covered in forests of pine, most of which are covered in grass and semi-arid brush, rise above deep, vibrant blue lakes. The first stop on our journey through the Scottish Highlands takes us to a small little hamlet of 139 people, Glenfinnan. There's a sense of sheer magic and fantasy here, as if you've stepped into a remote, enchanted forest home to centaurs, unicorns, and maybe even a few giant spiders. It's Glenfinnan itself where Hogwarts Castle sits in the Harry Potter film adaptations.
Alright, so in the Potter films, Hogwarts Castle actually sits right here on this lock, and as a matter of fact, it sits right there. That's the physical spot of Hogwarts Castle in the films. If you look right behind me, this island is where Dumbledore is buried in the films as well. Now, for the sake of my imagination and making it fun, I'm going to pretend that this is exactly where it would be in the books as well, and I'm going to pretend that the only reason that we don't see a massive castle sitting right there is because we're muggles and we're not supposed to. But in all reality's sake, it's just freaking gorgeous here, and no wonder the filmmakers wanted to put Hogwarts Castle right there.
My childhood imagination ran completely wild in Glenfinnan. The added layers of gargantuan scale and the senses that make up the true experience of these striking and majestic mountainsides made the fantasy world I spent my childhood dreaming of feel that much more real.
So if you remove the fantasy elements of a wizarding school, right, and you remove the magic and the sounds and the smells and the kind of sensations that come with that, if you really wanted to place yourself imaginatively into the natural setting of Hogwarts, or just Glenfinnan, well, it smells marshy. Like, it kind of smells weirdly salty, but I know it's fresh water. And it smells like dirt, like dry, fresh dirt. The breeze is very soft, though. You hear the sounds of your own footsteps kind of on gravel. But if you stop walking, you kind of just hear the sounds of birds chirping well off into the distance. The breeze kind of rippling through the low-lying grass. And the waves just very gently clapping into the solid land.
You'll also catch the occasional bell chime and some ambience ruining Muggle cars. At sunset, the sun's rays peek through those mystical mountains, now a soft but deep blue. The thing that most Potter tourists come to see is a bit more on the nose. The famous stone-arched Glenfinnan Viaduct. This towering bridge wraps blissfully around the creek-adorned valley and is seen prominently in the Potter films as the Hogwarts Express passes over it. The Jacobite is the steam engine train that plays the part in the films, and it's fully operable. Several times a day, tourists and hikers alike gather on the damp, muddy, rocky, and colorful plant-covered hillsides to watch as the black and red train clatters over the bridge, sending the sounds of its heavy clanks along the tracks and its deep train horn into the golden air. On the hike up, you'll notice the sense of damp earth and ferns joining the sounds of a trickling waterfall nearby. Your own feet bring about the sounds of splashing puddles. Fort William is the second largest city in the Scottish Highlands behind Inverness, with about 15,000 residents. Fort William is roughly 16 miles southeast of Glenfinnan, perched on the edge of the narrow Lake Linney in a broad, hilly valley near Ben Nevis, the tallest mountain on the British Isles. In a way, it's kind of a hub for this part of the Highlands known as the Lochaber region, especially if you're big on outdoor adventures in one of the most beautiful places on Earth. Surrounded by these ancient and dramatic Highland mountains and at the heart of the cozy and picturesque city center, Fort William's High Street is incredibly charming with some interesting blends in the ambience and atmosphere. For starters, there's a classic European high street vibe permeating from the gray cobbled stones, Victorian chimneys, earth-toned and stone facades, and pedestrian-only promenades. Those classic European vibes mesh well with the ambience of a mountain town, evident through the earthy hillsides, narrow and blue Loch Linney, charming bed and breakfasts, and turret-topped cottages. And then there's the fact that the town, in general, feels classically Scottish, especially thanks to those kilt and tartan-themed souvenir shops.
You know, it's a remarkably quiet high street, but it is a small town. All you can really hear is the sounds of, like, street dining, cutlery clanking together. Very light chatter. People are pretty quiet. You can hear the cars kind of on the road off to the side, but for the most part, it's just a really relaxing, quiet atmosphere. The air smells like different bakeries and different restaurants, kind of permeating out of the cafes and storefronts. And it still smells very much like that fresh Highland mountain air as well.
The air here is warm and relatively dry. Down by the waterfront, the lakeside beaches are rocky and layered with seashells. Occasionally, you'll see some evidence of many of the Scottish lochs' connection to the sea. For example, washed-up lion's head jellyfish. Our final stop today takes us to Caol, where I stayed. This little town, a little over a mile outside of Fort William, is home to just over 3,000 people. It's the kind of place that makes you forget there's even an outside world to worry about.
Alright, so I'm staying in this tiny little community, like a very small little town outside of Fort William called Caol. There are like 2 cafes. I think there's 1 little market, and the post office is closed. So it's little. My first impressions have been phenomenal. Not only is it really just beautiful, it's like this picturesque, sea cottage looking place right on the edge of a loch. It's this beautiful beach of pebbles and stone, and it's just surrounded by the Highland Mountains. It's truly beautiful. But one of my first impressions was at a little bakery where I had a full Scottish breakfast just a moment ago. And they don't take cards. They don't have a card reader. And we couldn't figure out how to do an international wire transfer. So she was like, just go enjoy your day. Like, don't worry about it. Buy somebody a tea. Do something kind for somebody. And I love small towns, man, for that exact reason. I'm going to go find an ATM. I'm going to get her cash because I want to support a local business. But, like, just that understanding, non-transactional personality of people living in communities like this is just phenomenal. And it's universal, right? Like, it's the same kind of thing that you would get in a small town wherever you're from, right? Where people don't view you as a transaction, they view you as a person. And I just thought that was very sweet. A great first impression of Caol.
Small beige and red stucco semi-detached houses under mossy brown slate roofs blanket the narrow streets, keeping consistency with the cool, earthy landscape. There are a few shops and cafes here and there, and the rare pub, but all in all, it's quiet. As you imagine yourself in this small, remote Highland village, Imagine the sounds of breezing wind and birds chirping, occasionally juxtaposed by discreet Britpop blasting from the cars passing by. The dry air on this rare sunny day smells almost floral and certainly fresh. Like its nearby neighbor Fort William, Caol sits on the icy, salty water of Loch Linnhe. Caol's coastline of gravelly sand is set against a striking skyline of old rolling mountains, including that of the aforementioned Ben Nevis, the UK's tallest, that look as if they were painted in thick, muted green brushstrokes, layering deep into the distance. A low blanket of aged, brown slate roofs atop the bright beige and white row houses sits above the dark, wet beachfront which is coated in seaweed and shells. Because Loch Linnhe is a sea loch, the water levels rise and fall with the tides. To place yourself onto the Caol shoreline, imagine the sounds of seagulls and other seabirds, your own footsteps on pebbly sand, and the trickling of water, which turns into a cascading sound near a small nearby waterfall. The crisp Highland air smells of muddy sand, seaweed, and salt water. There's a curious sight along the shore. The rusting Corpock shipwreck, a former 26-meter fishing boat once used to catch herring and mackerel in the North Sea. The mysterious old boat found itself on the Caol shores after a fierce storm back in 2011. I may be in the Highlands because of Harry Potter, but one of the most magical things I've experienced is watching the autumn leaves breeze off the trees while the sound of the waterfall and seagulls fill the seaweedy air amidst the dramatic backdrop of the Scottish Highlands. At a tiny, locally owned cafe, which they all are here, called Bacon Roll, I tried a full Scottish breakfast. While it had all the elements of English and Irish breakfasts, like baked beans, eggs, bacon, sausage, hash browns, and toast, it also included black pudding. It's certainly a bit bitter and peppery, but I liked it.
Well, y'all, thanks so much for watching and joining me in Caol and Glenfinnan. I really do hope that through today's video, you were able to immerse through all 5 senses into these spaces. And of course, if you haven't already, go check out my full Edinburgh travel vlog through all 5 senses to take a deep dive immersively into one of the most magical cities I've ever been to in my life. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.